This is part of our storytelling series for Camcorder. What we're trying to do is just, talk about the art of storytelling because that is what we're really trying to accelerate with the technology that we have is provide more people with the power to quickly tell those stories that are in their heads, right? So this is a series on that, and I'm joined today by Anne Mezzenga. And Anne, you're going to do so much better of a job introducing yourself than I ever would. So if you would please just tell us a little bit about your experience in the storytelling space and OmniTalk and everything that you're up to.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Justin. It's exciting to be here. I'm Anne Mezzenga. I'm one of the co-founders of OmniTalk Retail. And it's funny you talk about storytelling because I think that's really what we felt like as former retail executives at Target, both my co-founder and I. We felt like there was a lot of regurgitation of press releases, we'll say, when it came to really what technology was new and what our competitors were doing, for example, in the retail space. OmniTalk Retail was really born of us being able to dive deeper, to have conversations with people, to tell the story of the retailers and brands who were really diving into some of these new future leaning retail concepts and technologies and be able to get some of the deeper discussion into like what worked, what didn't, what watch outs they might have for other retailers and brands considering deploying these kinds of technology, and that's really where OmniTalk thrived and came to be. It was really giving that perspective.
First question, and I think you kind of talked about this and like why you're doing storytelling and what it means to you, but what really does storytelling mean to you?
I think it gets back to just our core as humans, Justin. I mean, how do you like to consume information? Is it just being given an example and telling you all the things, or is it, being able to create a story that's more relatable? I mean, I imagine that you feel like I do, where like I like to hear an example. I like to be told a story. You have a news background too. I mean, how do you think about it? Like, do you prefer consuming? You said small digestible bites, but like, if you're really going to invest in something, how do you like to be spoken to?
To your point, storytelling is such a human thing. I don't think there is any other
Mm-hmm.
species that actually tells stories in the way that humans do. So yeah, I think that it really is easy to forget because we do want to try to make things as concise as possible all the time, and that's
Right.
important too. But,
Right.
to be able to string together a narrative that really pulls the heartstrings, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what really matters most.
Well, and I think we look at things like that I see, especially in our retail space, and we look at the rise of the influencers speaking on behalf of brands, or even, live shopping, which is so popular in the eastern regions of the world, but is really starting to gain popularity, albeit a little more slowly here in the US. But it's like you want to hear an influencer talking. People are inspired to buy because they hear somebody speaking, telling you a story about their experience with a brand or with a product over, just hearing directly from the brand or retailer. And so I think we're going to continue to see the importance of storytelling in all facets of life, not just in how we buy things, but I think it's really like, some of the ideals and visions that we ascribe to, some of the, where we get our news, like it's all coming from these different sources. But I think storytelling is really at the core of it because, like you said, it like touches on those components of our humanity that I think we are just naturally drawn to. This is how we gather information versus, here's an ad for something, consume this. It's really about
Yeah.
like why should I be engaged in the content that you're putting out? And now that's become a core focus for a lot of brands throughout the world.
What about the limitations? Like when you're thinking about storytelling, when you're trying to craft the narrative, or what you're seeing in the industry, what are the limitations that are getting in the way of being able to effectively tell stories today?
I would actually say there's fewer limitations today to getting content out than there ever has been before. And I mean, there's platforms like Camcorder that are making this so much simpler. Because it used to be like we needed a photographer to come with us on a shoot. We needed to like, write the story, compile it. Like I think now it's actually, and this like goes into what I was saying, like the rise of the influencers. Like our kids can put together this content, and like start to make these unboxing videos or whatever it might be, because these tools have become so much more intuitive for the person kind of trying to create the content. I think the biggest challenge that I still see in this industry is quality storytelling. I still think that there is this human element that still needs to go into, like, what are the parts of that story that make me feel as I'm writing a piece of content, or make me think differently as I'm writing a piece of content. And I think that's where I still see a gap in some of the content that's being put out. It's more about putting content out quickly than it is about, like, you still have a journalist's concept or a creator's concept in mind, or ability to pull out those like really important bits of information from the story, versus just kind of putting it all out there in one. So I think that to me is still the biggest challenge, is like, how do I tell the story in a way that, like you said, is going to kind of pull at the heartstrings of the viewer.
Along those lines, technology. Are you using AI at all in any of your, storytelling work? Is it creating efficiencies? Are you seeing others use AI in interesting, effective ways? Being that we're in the AI space at Camcorder, I'm just curious, what your experience with the technology has been so far.
Yeah, I would say like our biggest support from AI right now comes from like having our created piece of content, and then being able to take that, and whether it's ingesting a transcript into AI to help us pull out like kind of clips from that content, or just kind of like, again, take it into that more digestible form that you talk about. And it's really allowing us to like stretch the content way further than we could ever do as just two people running a media organization. So that's the key. And we always say, like, our motto is like, how do we get the most out of the one piece of content that we're creating? And I think that's where, Camcorder and your team are really helping people like still do our job, but then how do you get, clips for TikTok? How do you get clips for YouTube? Like, how do you kind of create this personalized content out of that one solid piece that, again, you're using your journalistic integrity to create, and then how do you help that scale so that the most people can find you in the most places?
Okay, so I asked for your all-time favorite video, and if you've got that ready to go, awesome, share that. But maybe even just all-time favorite example of storytelling, since we're talking so much about storytelling specifically today.
One of my favorite storytellers is still Boyd Hubert from our local NBC News affiliate here in Minneapolis. I still remember some of the episodes where he would just like go into the most random places, but he'd be able to find and tell a story that made you invest yourself and your time in that. And I think that's where, like, it's something that we can all do in our jobs. It takes a lot of extra effort to find this, but I mean, even in this video, like asking a question like, what's your favorite video? To me, like that's getting more of me than you would typically get from, just a Q&A about like, what's your business? What are you doing? Like what technology do you, or processes do you use? And I think that's a really important thing, and is really core to like storytelling for all of time. I think that will be getting that connection in the content that you're creating is going to always be something that will be important.
That is such a great example. So I know a lot of people watching this won't be from the Twin Cities or Minnesota area. Boyd Hubert with Care 11, it's Kare 11. I would YouTube that and just watch some. I think it was Land of 10,000 Stories. Was that the franchise that he had? The name of the video
Yes.
franchise? There's got to be a library on YouTube. Great example of, like you said, going in and recognizing that everybody's got a story. Every place has a story to tell. And he does such a wonderful job in about 2 or 3 minutes of just pulling that story, extracting the really interesting parts about it that connect with everybody on a certain level.
Right.
So yes,
Right.
great example. Check out Boyd Hubert, Care 11, Land of 10,000 Stories, I think is the name of the franchise. So last question I have, but we can certainly keep talking. But do you have any advice for modern video producers, content creators, or marketers, right? Even if you're not necessarily in the content creation space, when it comes to storytelling, what would your advice be?
Well, anyone working for a brand, like, you are a content creator now. Brands are content creators, whether you are aware of that or not, I think that's how consumers are connecting with you now. They want to see more than just a static advertisement. It's really about how you're engaging with them. No, you don't have to do live streaming. You don't have to go through all of these hoops, but I think it's really important that you figure out, what story is your brand uniquely positioned to tell, and how are you uniquely positioned to connect with your consumers in a way that other brands aren't or your competitors aren't. And I think storytelling, again, becomes core to that. So it's important that you're investing in the right tools and resources to make that storytelling easy for your teams, and easy for your teams to learn how to do that better. So I think that's the key piece of advice that I'm seeing, in my space, working with consumers and understanding what they're looking for, the next generation of consumer, especially what they're looking for in the brands that they invest in.
Awesome advice. Anne Mezzenga with OmniTalk. So I always see you, I feel like on LinkedIn first, and then maybe I make my way over to the website. But where do you want to direct people if they want to check you out?
You can go to our YouTube channel. We're YouTube/OmniTalk Retail, and that's where we put all of our most up-to-date content. LinkedIn is a great place. You can reach out to me or to Chris Walton, my co-founder, and then OmniTalk.blog is where we keep all of our information, news articles, videos, and podcasts.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It certainly helps me feel more in the know. So again, thanks for putting that awesome resource out there. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And that'll conclude our first storytelling series. We'll be back with more of them as we find more people to tell stories.